We begin with the first day of confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
She is the first African-American woman to be nominated to sit on the Supreme Court, and the 51-year-old is a Harvard-trained lawyer who has spent 9 years as a federal judge. She has an extensive resume. It also includes 2 years as a federal public defender.
And for more on this week's proceedings, CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford joins us with more from Washington. Hi, Jan. So can you give us a breakdown of what the next few days will look like for Judge Brown Jackson?
Well, today we've already seen some of the Republican senators kind of outline what to expect in the next 2 days that are to come, when she will actually be questioned about her views, her experience, try to discern what her judicial philosophy might be. So that's going to be tomorrow and Wednesday, when she actually has to respond to questions from the committee, from the Republicans, and of course the Democrats. Today we have these opening statements from the members of the committee, and then this afternoon we will hear from the judge herself when she delivers what typically for these nominees is a highly personal opening statement where they talk about their life, their influences, their family struggle, and where they came from, and the views that they instilled in them, their views on the law and what they try to do as a lawyer, what drew them to the law. I'd expect to hear all of that from Judge Jackson, and what can be sometimes, and we've seen in the past for these hearings, a quite emotional personal statement as they start reflecting on their mother and other people that influenced them. And we've already seen Judge Jackson today get a little emotional at the opening, when some of the language about how historic her nomination is, and Senator Durbin talking about Abraham Lincoln. It is quite a powerful moment. And imagine her sitting in that chair. She is historic. This is an historic nomination. And while there have been many of these, and they've gotten quite heated as we've seen in years past, we can't lose sight of the fact that this is history being made. The first black woman nominated to the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah, absolutely, Jan. And, as she faces opening statements and then questions in the days ahead, it comes to mind that she's faced this before. In fact, 3 prior confirmation hearings, and had bipartisan support for her appointment to the Federal Court of Appeals. How does the fact that she's had recent scrutiny, and including bipartisan support, play into or complicate Republicans' efforts to maybe poke holes in her nomination?
Not at all. I mean, this is totally different. At the appeals court level, certainly at the federal district court level, where you're a trial judge, you're applying the law that the Supreme Court has set, or that Congress has set. At the Supreme Court, you're actually interpreting the Constitution and statutes for what lower courts should do. So you're kind of setting the standard up there. And that means that this nomination and this confirmation hearing is completely different. What it does do, though, is we already have a sense of some of her answers to some of those questions. A lot of her background materials are already available for the committee to look at. And so you will see Republican senators actually ask her about what she said in those previous hearings. For example, when she was asked about her judicial philosophy, she testified, or she wrote in a written question when she was nominated to the appeals court, that she didn't have a judicial philosophy per se. You're going to see the Republican senators really try to get at that, to try to show that she actually does, they believe, and that she would be very liberal on that Supreme Court, that she has a very liberal judicial philosophy.
Well, Jen, as you point out, in her prior roles, in her current role, she would be applying the law as written and the standards that the Supreme Court set. But if she's on the Supreme Court, she would have a more interpretive role, potentially. So do you think she'll revise that statement, which I was going to reference if you didn't, about not having a judicial philosophy per se?
I think it's going to be hard for her to, because sometimes, I mean, when you talk about a judicial philosophy, obviously conservatives believe that you should look at the Constitution the way that it was intended to be at the time of the framers, right? Liberals think, well, look, that was a long time ago, and we've got to kind of infuse it with more modern day ideas. Conservatives say that is judges making up law. Like, we can't, if you let judges say what they think the law should be, then there are no restraints on judges. So you're going to see the Republicans try to get at, do you really see any limits on the judge's role when they're interpreting the Constitution or not? Or do you see a living Constitution, which is what the liberals, Republicans and say that Democrats see the Constitution as. So you're going to see efforts to try to get at that. Whether they're going to make any headway, though, I think is probably unlikely, because is it's hard for these nominees to answer those questions. They can't answer any questions about cases or issues that might come before them. And in some cases, they haven't sat in that, I mean, in any of these cases, and they haven't really sat in that chair up at the Supreme Court. So the judicial philosophy of an incoming justice may be one thing when they get there. It may be unformed, and then it can change a little over time. I think there's no question, based on her record, that she's going to be a very liberal justice. The question is, what does that mean in terms of how she's approaching cases, and will there be restraints on her interpretation on some of these cases?
And will there be evolution? It's a long appointment, as Jan pointed out.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, Jan, thank you for that insight. Much appreciated.